Oh, well, my name is Gary Bland. I help run LUG in West Virginia. Today, Ethan Smith is going to do a presentation and demo on stigging with Ansible roles. And if you can, keep your mics on mute unless you have a question. Take it away.
All right. How's it going, everyone? Ethan Smith, Senior Consultant, Red Hat Public Sector. Like Gary said, I'm going to do a quick little demo and presentation on system hardening with Ansible using the Red Hat official STIG role for RHEL 7. So let me share my screen, and I will. Okay. Okay, Firefox is being pretty cool right now, but okay. Can someone confirm they can see my screen?
I cannot see.
Not yet.
Cannot. All right.
There it goes.
All right.
Yep.
So, sorry about that. System hardening with Ansible. Yep. Ethan Smith, Senior Consultant, Red Hat Public Sector.
It's just a black screen for me.
Hold on a second.
Still?
There we go.
There it goes.
Okay. All right. So, continuing. System hardening. I'm going to assume everyone has a pretty good idea of what system hardening means, but in case you don't, there's a Wikipedia definition, but at the bottom you see, in practice, it just means configuring a system so it operates securely and minimize the risk of exploitation. There are many ways to do that. Being public sector, I'm pretty sure everyone here is probably familiar with stigging. DISA releases stigs for different products, operating systems, and the like, as kind of check lists of how to configure certain systems to operate securely. DISA being a DoD agency, but stigs are often used as the de facto standard throughout many government agencies, DHS, IC, DOJ, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're going to harden a system in the government, you're probably going to have to stig something at some point. These are published publicly on the Public Cyber Mill DISA website, so you can reach those there. We are going to talk about traditionally how did you use to stig a system. Previously, a sysadmin would have to go line by line with the stig viewer up and a terminal in their target system and make each configuration change. As I'm sure people here are familiar, that would take a very, very long time. You can make a typo, you could accidentally brick a system, you could kill SSH if you're in the cloud and not be able to get back into it. Lots of problems. So, solution to that is Ansible. You know, it's repeatable, idempotent, it's quick, and you can do N+1 systems at a time. So the Red Hat official RHEL 7 DISA STIG Ansible role, mouthful there, was created. This was a partnership between Red Hat engineering and consulting and other people throughout the company with the Compliance as Code project. This project is sort of an open source repository of different type of compliance configuration. CIS benchmarks, stigging, the PCI, financial stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Red Hat worked with them to create a list of tasks, which were then turned into a role based on the DISA RHEL 7 STIG. If you're curious about what the project looks like, there's hyperlinks here. I'll send this out to Gary, who can distribute it after. And here's the link to the actual Ansible role itself. I put that in the Google Meet chat, so feel free to check that out. I've given a lot. I'll pause real quick. Any questions before we continue on?
Can you post that to the chat again? It never came through.
Yes, I will do that. There you go.
There it is. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Where was I? Back to this window. So I'm going to switch to my terminal real quick and kind of walk through these steps and show you how to use this role because I want to kick it off on a test system I have. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, maybe if time allows, it'll be done and we can kind of see what it looks like and poke around a little bit. So let me stop presenting and I'll switch to a different All right. Let me know when you can see my terminal.
You're good.
All right.
Yep.
So here I just have a Stig directory. Inside I have cloned the repo. I have an inventory that just has Stig clients group and the public IP of my test system I created in DigitalOcean. And then a very, very simple playbook that just calls that role. Now, this is about as bare bones as it could possibly get. There are, you could tack this on to the end of a provisioning role. For example, like Travis, like you're talking about, after you do an end-to-end provisioning of a rev system to a satellite, you could tack on this role at the end, and your systems will be stigged. You could, have a provisioning callback. It calls back the tower that does this as, through dynamic inventory syncs. So, you spin up a AWS system. Once that system's up, API call a tower, automatically stings the system. So as easy as this could possibly be, I have a quick Ansible playbook command that will kick this off, and it's going and doing its thing. Now, if we go to the actual tasks themselves, there are, you can see how long this takes to load. So it's set at the top, 17,000 lines. So this is quite a beefy role. It takes probably 15-ish minutes to run if they're, maybe there's a yum update in here. So if that takes a while, that adds some time. But back to the presentation. So pretty much download the repo, build your inventory, and then start tuning your variables. Create the playbook, run against your systems. Very, very simple. Now, the third step is kind of can be sort of a rabbit hole, right? So the variables themselves, as I'm sure people are familiar with roles, are in defaults. There are 225 or so different variables. These defaults correspond to Stig controls set by DISA. But let's say, for example, this one here. This limits the amount of concurrent sessions on a system. If you want to change that from 10 concurrent sessions down to 6 or 5 or whatever, you would do so here, or setting the variable somewhere that has a higher precedence than role defaults. If you're familiar with Ansible, this is a common trap that people fall into. Variable precedence can get tricky, but pretty much almost everything can overwrite role default. So if you put it pretty much anywhere else, that will be the value that's used. So pretty much like I just said, variable precedence, there's a log here or a link here to the Ansible docs that can kind of explain that a little bit better. Like I said, here is just a few examples. If you want to have a different number than 4 for the fail delay, change it here. If you don't want to enable FIPS mode, change that to false. Change the account time, the auto logout timeout, change it here. And this kind of, like I said, there's 200 or so you can kind of tune this role for specific products. For example, with my customer now, we have a different repos, one Stig for satellite, one for OpenShift, one for IDM, one for Ansible Tower, and they all pull variable files based on what kind of system they are. And then Stig is applied so that not to break the systems, because I'm sure we've all had that happen. Onwards. As I said, very simple playbook, as easy as it can get. That's what's currently running here. Going through, doing this thing. So right here, security patches are up to date. This is where the Yum update is happening, so it's going to pause here for a bit, but we can come check on that in a little bit. So after it's done running, what do the scan results look like? 91%. This is just an OpenSCAP scan. These ones are better. I'm sorry. So this is the pre-Stig scan, the brand new RHEL 7 system. Just I think I updated it to RHEL 7.8. I had a 7.6 ISO, but did a Yum update. By default, 64% Stig compliant. Not great. Your security team is probably going to complain about that. 7 highs, 113 mediums. You know, doesn't look too good. After the Stig, 86%, 2 highs. Those 2 highs are the grub password and the RPM hash validation. The latter one is a very common false positive, and quick little bit of digging will be able to confirm that. So that's a very quick overview. I think I went a little bit fast because it is still doing the Yum update, but that is pretty much all I have. Please hit me with some questions if you want to see anything else.
I got one question, more just informational. Is this role kind of like a derivative of the OpenSCAP remediation abilities, or were they totally separate? Because I know when you run the SCAP tool, it can usually also spit out remediation playbooks for what it finds if you want it to remediate.
Right. So is my understanding that they are very, very, very similar. I think they were developed in tandem and just presented in 2 different ways. One within SCAP, one as this role. And same thing goes with the MindPoint group Stig, which I know is floating around and used a lot. It's a very, very similar process. We worked with MindPoint group and DISA during that, and this is kind of what came out of that as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, and just to add to Keith's comment too, the other thing with using SCAP Workbench, you can generate the remediation playbooks and stuff based on different OpenSCAP policies. You don't have to just use the Stig. You pick which SCAP benchmark you want, and those are what it does. I will say, in my opinion, I like the SCAP Workbench tool a little bit better because you can go in there and actually customize and see what you want to do graphically, and you don't have to sort through all those variables.
True.
All those variables give me a headache.
The advantage of these Ansible variables, I will say, is it allows you to have infrastructure as code for your security hardening. And you just store these in a Git repo, and Tower or however you can automatically pull them down and apply them. The initial tweaking and configuration is a pain. I did it for an OpenShift 3.11, and it's not fun. But once you get it right, it's repeatable and can be applied to many, many systems as well.
Well, the same argument can be made for what you generate out of the SCAP Workbench tool. You generate that initially.
True.
You've got your tailoring file that you then check into your Git repository. And if you ever need to change the tailoring file, you just update it. I was wondering if anybody else on here had some opinions, because I would imagine, Steve, you've probably done some things. And I know basically what Keith, Gary, and Ben and I have done. And I know I worked with Chad V16 there on the SCAP scanning and stuff. So they were doing it, with the SCAP Workbench tool.
Yeah, I never used SCAP in the current contract I'm on. Those guys barely even use satellite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they are a puppet master shop. They don't even want to hear the word Ansible. They don't even want to talk about it. They were given an OpenShift presentation, and they kind of nod their heads. And then the next time I saw some slides from them, they were talking about the demo they were having put in for Tanzu instead. And they do everything with vRealize Orchestrator. They didn't even care about the satellite integration with vSphere.
Okay. Not what I expected, but that is good information to know.
I mean, I keep giving them workshops on different stuff. I showed them how to patch a system live last Friday. 2 people showed up.
So, Staley, are you still on? Yeah, you're still here.
Yeah,
What
I'm
about I know you're with Microsoft now, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, are you guys utilizing Ansible on the back end to do anything? I know technically Ansible Tower still can work with Windows systems and run your playbooks, but instead of Python, it's implemented in PowerShell. But I was just wondering what you were doing with Ansible, as well as any cool ways to stig the Windows boxes.
So I was interested in the Linux side, the stigging. So I know Ansible's still integrated with the Cloud Shell, and that's what I'm playing with at the moment, is just running Ansible playbooks directly from Cloud Shell. So it seems to work pretty well. But yeah, I was just interested to see if this was a one-shot, like the playbook was all done, or if there was a lot of configuration that needed. I'm dealing more and more with DoD customers, so.
So there isn't any, for example, what I'm doing right now, I'm just running the defaults, which are, what's specified in the STIG. So if you want to be more restrictive, you can change. You can go through and tweak it. You're probably not going to get, better scan percentages. I don't think the scans are that, if the timeout's 600 seconds and you put 200 seconds, you're probably not going to gain anything. But as far as a scan, but it's a more secured, quote unquote. But my point is, you can just run the defaults and it'll, do, I think it was 91% of the
80-90%, yeah,
80 something, yeah, and in my experience, if you get close to 90%, most security teams will, throw you a POAM or two. So,
yeah, I'm interested to see how Ansible can be used for other configuration changes. So, this is my first foray into Ansible and Red Hat, really.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, there's all types of goodies out there for Ansible. I mean, pretty much if it needs to be done on a system, there's probably Ansible something for it.
So Josh, for reference, one of the meetups I did, 2018, from the looks of this, I did one on Clevis and Tang, but that was encryption and security. So the last part of the meetup, we talked a little bit about the SCAP and security compliances. And I know when Jason and I stigged the Windows 7 and Windows 10 boxes, I used the SCAP Workbench tool to customize the SCAP content. So that link I posted in there to my people page has the stuff with the SCAP Workbench. And what's cool with it, you can pick one of the publicized OpenSCAP content profiles for Windows or whatever version of Linux. You pick the profile, you can run a scan, and not only does it generate a results file on what you failed, you can select and tell it to create a Ansible playbook, if you will, a remediation playbook. And that remediation playbook will then fix the crap that failed. And then you get as close to 100% as possible. Now, it looks like Ethan clicked on that stuff, and it's
Yeah, I was just scrolling through it. Yeah.
the slideshow piece, but the other PDF is an actual guide. If you want to open that, Ethan, that 2 meg file, and if you want to go to the chapter 3 thing, that tells you how you can do it on Linux. On Windows, if you go and download the SCAP Workbench and install that on a Windows machine, it basically runs the same, and you select the type of content you want to load. And I know one of the last things we had to do for Windows-based machines was doing the stigging or the scapping of Firefox and Internet Explorer, because for some reason this decides to call out browser settings and things like that that need certain things. And, you know, obviously in Windows, those are registry settings or group policies, whereas in Linux, we're doing configuration file pieces. But this will not only generate the results, but from that results file, you can select to do bash, remediation scripts, Ansible, and for Steve out there, it will do Puppet. The sucky part is not every single line item in that profile has a Puppet remediation script. So they may have only done a bash or an Ansible remediation task or script, and there's no Puppet equivalent to fix that, because everything is open sourced in OpenSCAP. It's whoever's choosing to write the code on how much effort they want to put into it.
Is there any Ansible playbooks around Kube or Kubernetes rather?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's an area where I'm starting to dig more into. I'm a complete noob when it comes to Kubernetes, but I'm starting to learn it. So
I don't remember the URL, but if you go to Ansible Galaxy, Ansible, are you familiar with Ansible Galaxy at all?
No.
Okay, so it's essentially a repository for Ansible roles and collections. So if you want Kubernetes, I mean, so what I'm showing here, Jeff Gerling, very, very, very well-known guy in the Ansible community, writes and maintains dozens and dozens of roles. This is one of the more popular ones for Kubernetes. So I mean, you can go here and install it. It has, you know, a whole README and how to use it. But like if you wanted to, let's say I wanted to install Apache or something, you know, let's probably sort by download count. Yeah, so, you know, there's thousands of roles in here and collections and whatnot to do. Here we go, roles. The collections are first. So, like, yeah, so you see this one has over 3 million downloads for installing Apache and configuring. And, you know, it works with all the different Linux and stuff, operating systems. And so if you're curious if there's Ansible for something, Ansible Galaxy is probably the first place to check. So
yeah, I'll definitely bookmark that site.
Yeah.
Travis, you mentioned OpenShift. So how does OpenShift versus Ansible, or are those two competing products, or is there synergy between both those?
OpenShift would compete more with straight out Kubernetes. OpenShift is Red Hat's extension on Kubernetes.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I know there's OpenShift on Azure now. I think it's GA. So.
Yep. So that is the Stig roll, finished in 15 minutes. This is just an Ansible plugin I have to, how long the top tasks took. So the Yum update took 300 seconds. So that was pretty much the bulk of the time. But so now if we, just poke around and do a couple quick checks. Oh, that's not, it's not Ansible, it's SSH. So what's usually on a Stig system? So let's see, audit rules. Oh. So these audit rules that we're all pretty familiar with, they all get put in there. It'll install aid, I'm sure. It'll FIPS. Oh, it didn't reboot, but FIPS is enabled. Just needs a reboot, and it'll be running in the kernel. Normal Stig stuff. So that's all I have. Again, please more questions. If not, I'll turn it back over to Gary.
I don't have anything else. I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad everybody had some questions.
I didn't find it.
And I will upload this to the LUG YouTube page in a day or two because my internet sucks. So I have to download it and possibly edit and then upload it again. So, but keep checking the Google Sites, WV LUG, and I'll just keep updating that same page with the next month's topic. So last month we did IDM with Glenn Sneed. This month was with Ethan, and then we're always looking for presenters. If anybody wants to present or knows somebody that wants to present on something, usually open source. Free and open source is even better, but open source is kind of our area. So that's about it. Anybody else have anything? It's a chatty bunch.
Thank you, Ethan.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.